10 criminals who outwitted law enforcement for decades. Welcome to Creepshow, the channel where we delve into the dark corners of history, unraveling the twisted tales of crime, mystery, and those who defy the odds. If you're fascinated by daring criminals who eluded justice for decades, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join our growing community of curious minds. Now let's dive into today's chilling story of outlaws who managed to stay one step ahead of the law. Number 10. Assata Shakur, the escaped revolutionary. In the late 1960s, Assata Shakur, born Joanne Deborah Chesimard, emerged as a polarizing figure amidst the civil rights movement. A member of the Black Liberation Army, BLA, Shakur believed in fighting systemic oppression any means necessary. But her radical beliefs led her down a dangerous path. On a chilly night in May 1973, New Jersey state troopers stopped a car carrying Shakur and two other BLA members on the New Jersey Turnpike. The encounter turned deadly when shots rang out. One trooper was killed and another injured. Shakur claimed she was unarmed, but authorities painted her as the mastermind. She was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Shakur's story didn't end there. In 1979, a group of armed allies broke into the Clinton Correctional Facility and freed her in a daring prison escape. Shakur fled to Cuba, where she received political asylum and continues to live to this day, becoming a symbol of defiance to some and a terrorist to others. Despite a $2 million bounty on her head, she remains out of reach. Number 9. Glen Stewart Godwin, the Shawshank-Like escape artist. Glen Stewart Godwin's story reads like a Hollywood thriller. A convicted murderer, Godwin found himself locked away in Folsom State Prison, one of America's most secure facilities. But Godwin wasn't planning to stay for long. Using ingenuity and help from accomplices on the outside, Godwin cut through steel bars, navigated storm drains, and floated across a river on an inflatable raft to freedom. His 1987 escape was so meticulously planned that authorities were left scratching their heads. But Godwin's criminal streak didn't stop there. Fleeing to Mexico, he fell into the drug trade and landed in yet another high-security prison. In a move as brazen as his first, Godwin escaped again in 1991, this time after allegedly killing a fellow inmate. To this day, Godwin remains at large, a shadowy figure who outsmarted not one, but two prison systems. Number 8. Sharon Kinne, the Femme Fatale who vanished. In the 1960s, Sharon Kinne seemed like any other suburban housewife, but behind her charming smile was a deadly secret. When her husband was found dead in their Missouri home, Kinne claimed it was an accident. The gun, she said, went off while their toddler played with it. Authorities were initially convinced, but suspicions grew when another man she was romantically involved with turned up dead. Facing mounting evidence, Kinne was charged with murder. But her courtroom theatrics and connections to the criminal underworld turned her trials into spectacles. She managed to evade a solid conviction despite being tried 5 times. While out on bail in 1964, Kinne fled to Mexico, where she committed another murder. Dubbed La Pistolera by the Mexican press, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. In 1969, Kinne escaped, vanishing without a trace. Some say she fled to Central America, while others believe she lived quietly under an assumed identity. Number 7. Jamal Al-Gashey, the survivor of Munich. Jamal Al-Gashey is the last known survivor of one of the most infamous terrorist attacks in history, the 1972 Munich Olympics massacre. As a member of the Palestinian group Black September, Al-Gashey participated in the hostage-taking of Israeli athletes, a tragedy that ended in a bloody firefight. Captured by German authorities, Al-Gashey was imprisoned but released just months later in a controversial prisoner exchange following the hijacking of a Lufthansa plane. Outraged, Israel launched Operation Wrath of God, a covert mission to eliminate all those responsible for Munich. But Al-Gashey disappeared into the shadows, evading Mossad's pursuit. In 1999, he briefly resurfaced in a documentary, his face partially obscured, expressing no regret for his role in the massacre. Today, his whereabouts remain unknown, a ghost of one of history's darkest chapters. Number 6. Victor Manuel Gerena, the Inside Man. In 1983, Victor Manuel Gerena became an unlikely criminal mastermind. A mild-mannered armored truck driver, Gerena shocked the nation when he carried out the largest cash heist in U.S. history at the time, stealing $7 million from a Wells Fargo truck in Connecticut. Using a homemade concoction of aspirin and water, Gerena subdued his co-workers before loading the money into his car and disappearing. Authorities later uncovered his ties to Los Macheteros, a Puerto Rican separatist group. Gerena was allegedly smuggled into Mexico and eventually made his way to Cuba. Though nearly 20 accomplices were captured, Gerena remained elusive. Listed on the FBI's most wanted list for decades, he is believed to live modestly in Cuba, protected by the government, but unable to spend his ill-gotten fortune. Number 5. Dawood Ibrahim, the Kingpin in Exile. Dawood Ibrahim is not just a fugitive. He's a legend in the world of organized crime. Rising through the ranks of Mumbai's underworld in the 1980s, Ibrahim orchestrated a sprawling criminal empire that included extortion, smuggling, and even ties to Bollywood. In 1993, his name was linked to devastating bombings in Mumbai that killed over 250 people. The attacks were reportedly retaliation for communal violence against Muslims, and Ibrahim became India's most wanted man. Escaping to Pakistan, where he is reportedly under the protection of the state, Ibrahim continues to live lavishly, throwing opulent parties attended by political elites. Despite numerous attempts by India to extradite him, he remains untouchable, a ghost haunting the corridors of international diplomacy. Number 4. Manabu Miyazaki, the fox-eyed enigma. In Japan, the name Manabu Miyazaki carries both fear and fascination. Known as a yakuza with a knack for manipulation, Miyazaki's involvement in corporate extortion schemes during the 1980s earned him the nickname the Fox-Eyed Man. The schemes involved sending poisoned products to corporations, followed by demands for money to stop the attacks. Though Miyazaki was questioned, authorities never gathered enough evidence to charge him. Surviving assassination attempts and outmaneuvering law enforcement, Miyazaki reinvented himself as a celebrity writer. His autobiography sold hundreds of thousands of copies, cementing his status as an untouchable figure in Japanese society. Number 3. The Great Train Robbers, the ones who got away. The 1963 Great Train Robbery in England was as audacious as it was lucrative. A gang of thieves stopped a Royal Mail train and made off with $2.6 million, equivalent to millions more today. While most of the gang was eventually caught, some key players vanished. The mastermind, known as the Ulsterman, and accomplices dubbed Mr. 1, Mr. 2, and Mr. 3, were never conclusively identified. Theories abound, linking them to postal workers and career criminals. Their share of the loot, however, was never recovered, leaving their fate shrouded in mystery. Number 2. Reuben X. Francis, the bodyguard who disappeared. Reuben X. Francis was Malcolm X's bodyguard on the fateful day of his assassination in 1965. Amid the chaos, Francis shot one of the assailants and was arrested, but after being released on bail, he vanished. Some speculate that Francis was a covert informant, possibly for the NYPD or FBI. His disappearance adds another layer to the enduring mystery of Malcolm X's death, fueling suspicions of a larger conspiracy. Number 1. Donald Eugene Webb, the Ghost of Saxonburg. In 1980, Donald Eugene Webb became a fugitive after killing Saxonburg, Pennsylvania Police Chief Gregory Adams during a routine traffic stop. A master of disguise and false identities, Webb eluded capture for decades. Although officially removed from the FBI's most wanted list, Webb's legacy lives on. In 2017, authorities discovered his remains in the backyard of a home, linked to his wife, finally closing the chapter on one of America's longest-running manhunts. These are the stories of criminals who defied the odds, slipping through the cracks of justice. Their tales remind us of the thin line between cunning and cruelty. If you enjoyed this dive into the dark side, make sure to subscribe to Creepshow for more riveting stories. See you in the next episode.